It's Diana Day at Saratoga. Let's cap the 12 race card right now. Hi, everyone. Matthew DeSantis here with NYRA Bets, here with another episode of Capping the Card, where I'm going to go race 1 through race 12 on Saturday's Diana Stakes Day card, give you my top pick and my top value play. Now, before we get into that, first of all, I apologize for this whole situation. You could probably tell, a little bit under the weather, the voice not quite as strong as it normally is, a little bit more nasally, trying to sound like Bob Dylan, maybe Tom Petty. I apologize for that. But listen, we're going to try to get through all 12 races here with a minimal amount of interruptions. I do have my Kleenex right here. I got my Diet Mountain Dew. We're ready to roll. But the other thing is, want to remind you to press that like button and subscribe to NYRA Bets YouTube today. Subscribing is entirely free of cost, just notifies you when new videos drop on the channel, whether those are race previews, full card analyses, handicapping and betting tutorials, weekly programs, and so much more. Kaylee Shapiro and I are going to be starting a Road to the Breeders' Cup show, a week in review show as well for Saratoga. Obviously, we got the Right or Wrong podcast with Kaylee and Nick Zito. That's a lot of fun. The Win Play show for myself. A lot of great stuff every single week right here on NYRA Bets YouTube. All right. Well, like I said, welcome to Capping the Card. If this is your first time joining, premise is pretty straightforward. I'm going to give you my top pick for all 12 races on the Diana Stakes Day card. Now, top pick, that should be pretty self-explanatory. I'm also going to give you a value play. Sometimes that value play is a horse that I think you really need to consider on your horizontal wagers. I think is a legitimate win threat at a bigger price. Other times, it's a horse that I just think is going to outrun their odds. Do I think they can win? Maybe, maybe not. But I think a lot of times there are horses that are helpful to use in your vertical exotics and your exactas, trifectas, that sort of thing. So I will call those distinctions out when they pop up. But listen, the only way to get through all 12 races is to start with the first one. So let's kick things off with a $100,000 maiden special weight race. And there's two maiden special weight races to kick off the card. I'm excited about both of them. But this first one is for 2-year-olds going 6 furlongs on the dirt. My top pick is the number 2 curtain call for trainer Mark Casse. Now, we're going to talk about this horse in a moment, but we should probably address the elephant in the room, which is Tagir Meet, the number 4, or Tiger Meet, however you choose to pronounce it. I don't know how they choose to pronounce it because the horse is not yet to debut, so I've not heard a track announcer call the horse's name. But this one is a $1.4 million son of Into Mischief out of the mare Silk Route, I should say. Here's the thing. That mare has produced another runner, South Sea, who was also by Into Mischief. And that horse took 3 starts to break its maiden. Also is the full sibling to another horse, Silk Trade, by the same combination, Silk Route by Into Mischief. That horse also took 3 starts to break its maiden. The one that I think people are latching on to is the fact that it's the full sibling to Taraz, who broke its maiden debut and then won 2 stakes races in 3 career starts for Brad Cox. Now, that was all the way back in 2019. So the more recent offspring of this mare have not really been getting the job done. So I think there is some concern here, at least for me, about first out success, especially at a short price, 9 to 5 in the morning line. I know the big price tag. I know this is a horse that they're going to want to obviously have it be very successful in debut up here at Saratoga, some nice skate works, etc. I'm going to try to play against this horse. Like I said, I'm going to use the number 2 curtain call at 5-2 for Mark Casse with Jose Ortiz up on the mount. This one finished second to Obliteration. Now, Obliteration made a big statement up here last week in Saratoga in the Sanford, winning that race by 10.5 lengths with a 91 Beyer speed figure. Curtain call finished second to this horse last time out, which was its first time out. And I thought, again, coming out of that sort of a race, very important. The other thing is, this was the case last year where you saw a lot of horses coming out of Churchill run really well up here in Saratoga. It wasn't just Obliteration running well last week. It was also the horse King Solver for Rudy Brissett coming out of a maiden race at Saratoga as well. So, again, I think kind of interesting to see a lot of success from those Churchill Downs maiden races coming up here to Saratoga. I think this one's pretty seriously for Mark Casse, whose barn has been firing on all cylinders. Jose Ortiz got a couple wins on opening day. So that's going to be my top pick. Now, my value play, I really struggle because I really like the horse Throckmorton on the inside. I wish that horse didn't draw the inside rail for Jose D'Angelo. That horse has some really strong workouts. Louis Saez up. If that horse can break clean, That's a dangerous horse at 7-2 as well. So if I'm trying to beat the 4 here in the early pick 5, I'd use the 1 as well. But from a value standpoint, the 1 doesn't present much value at 7-2. Therefore, I went to the number 3, Tappett's Legacy. For trainer Todd Pletcher with Irad Ortiz Jr. up on the mount. This one is, of course, the son of Tappett, $550,000 OBS March 2025 sale. You have a mare that hasn't really produced much to this point, but really only has one other runner. So interested to see how this one runs. But I like the gate work. 2 back on June 27th, 49 flat gate work. That was a bullet, first of 80 that day. So again, over the Oklahoma track. So when you see that, those times are always going to be a little bit slower. Oklahoma track's a little bit deeper. Todd never works his horses that strong and that fast, a lot of times leading up to debut. But I think this one is pretty serious at 5-1. So I think this horse presents great value in a relatively short 6-horse field. 5-1 is actually the 5th choice on the board. So you're getting this essentially the second biggest price with this horse. I think this one has a pretty serious chance, and certainly is a horse to consider if you're trying to beat that 4 in the early pick 5. Well, let's go to race number 2, another $100,000 maiden special weight for 2-year-old fillies. This one also going 6 furlongs, also on the dirt. And where am I going to go here? I'm going to go to the number 5 Ginger Ale out of the mare Coca-Cola. So I get it. It's cute. And this is the half sibling to Search Results, who is one of my favorite horses. I always loved Search Results a lot. And I remember when she ran in that personal ensign and a couple of times. And so she was always, I guess just that once in the personal ensign, but ran up in New York a bunch. And so always liked this horse quite a bit. A lot of speed with this one. Won in debut, won 4 of the first 5 races in her career, including the Acorn back in 2021. So Search Results was always a horse I had a lot of respect for. Sired by Flatter, and who's a modest mid-level sire. Now this mare is being paired up with Into Mischief, obviously a little bit of an upgrade there from a standpoint of a up top sire. But this one, it's interesting if you look at who the mare has been matched with. Flatter, Will Take Charge, and then Nyquist. And I mean, Nyquist I like a lot. And actually, it's interesting. The Nyquist is the one that hasn't broken his maiden. All the other ones have multiple victories. But it'll be interesting to see this one in debut. I think there's plenty of reasons to think this one's pretty fast for trainer Rudy Brissett. Flavien Prat up on the mount. Obviously, the French connection, always dangerous, winning 30% of their races together over the last year with a $2.36 ROI. I think Brissett, yes, he's not known for getting first-timers ready, but this is a type of spot they make sense in, sprinting on the dirt. And you have Flavien up. I like the post draw. This horse has some nice works down at Keeneland. Came up to Saratoga, got a work in last week. So I like that horse that got a little bit more familiar. But what I like is this horse has some nice gate works. 48-4 gate work, a 48-1 gate work. So it shows this horse can get out of the gate well. That's 90% of the battle a lot of times in these debuts. So definitely like this one as my top choice. And then my value play in this race is the number 7 Asking for trainer Bill Mott with Junior Alvarado up. And I think the reason should be obvious once you look at the past performances, and that is the bullet on July 7th, 35-2 bullet gate work. And you don't see that number very often for a trainer like Bill Mott. And this horse had been kind of, quite frankly, loping along with these 4 furlong workouts, 50-2, 50 flat, and you go, okay, they're just giving them a bunch of maintenance works. It's not really, just building up foundation, etc. And then all of a sudden you see that 35-2, first of 25 coming out of the gate. My good friend Barry Spears always says he loves to see the best gate work leading up to debut in these 2-year-old races. I tend to agree with him in that. And so I think Asking at 6-1, again, a relatively short field of only 7, and you're getting a pretty good price here. Again, kind of second highest choice along with the number 1 Spa Protector. But I think the 7 Asking, Claiborne Farms, owned and bred, sired by Looking at Lucky, out of a first-time mare. So, 6-1, I think feels like a very reasonable price on this horse. And this horse has speed. As long as this horse doesn't veer out which I was worried about with 2-year-old races, breaking on the far outside, the horses will break out towards open ground. As long as that horse doesn't do that and Junior can keep this horse straight, horses, I think, are going to break like a bullet and really get up there. Obviously, Cherie's got a nice horse in this race as well for Belladonna Racing, the number 6, Atropa, at 3-1. So, again, a lot of live runners in these first two races. Going to be a lot of fun. But for me, I'll go 5 up top and 7 as a value play in this spot. Well, let's go to race number 3 on the card, which is a $100,000 claiming race. You don't see a lot of those for 3-year-olds going 7 furlongs on the dirt. And in this race, I went to the number 6 Art Fair as my top choice for trainer Mark Casse. This one is coming out of some starter allowance races at Churchill Downs. And again, talking about that connection between Churchill to Saratoga, we've seen that form travel really well. This horse has outstanding early speed, picks Flavian and Pratt up. Flavian Pratt started opening day by winning the first 3 races on the card. I think he's got a lot of live runners here as well. This horse, you look at what this horse did against Optional Claiming Company 4 back off the bench at Tampa, going 7 furlongs, more importantly, wired them and won by 5 lengths. So I think this horse absolutely has that ability to do this sort of a thing again. Hasn't been able to get the job done against that $50,000 starter allowance N1X competition. Dropping this horse in to a $100,000 claiming race, I think makes plenty of sense. It's a good spot. I think most of these horses will not get claimed, and so it's a pretty safe spot to put your horse in. It might be a little bit easier for them. And again, I just think this horse has outstanding early speed and can really use that to its advantage and get to the front. There's some other speed in this race, but nothing that's too overwhelming. And quite frankly, I think Art Fair is just speed of the speed and has already been proven at 7 furlongs. So plenty to like there. In terms of the value play, the number 3, Mega Magic, 6-1 for trainer Al Stall Jr. This horse broke its maiden debut on the turf and actually stayed on the turf for the next couple of starts. Then went and ran an off track last time out in an $80,000 N2L claimer and ran really well over a sloppy sealed track at Churchill Downs. And it's possible that, Al Stall Jr. said, hey, listen, this horse suddenly is running pretty well over the main track. And if you look at how this horse trains over the main track, this horse can clearly move over dirt without a problem. I mean, has, a 47-3 work, has a 48 flat work. So can clearly get over the ground okay. As sired by Good Magic out of about Malibu Moon there, I figure there's a fair amount of versatility with regards to surface in this horse. I just like the fact that this one is now sticking to the grass, or sticking to the dirt, I should say, getting off the grass, and the blinkers are going on. That's the big thing, the equipment change. This horse, not surprisingly, also has, a little bit more of an off-the-pace running style. You go back and look at when this horse broke its maiden at Fairgrounds, got out to the front. The next few starts has been sitting 5th, 6th, 7th, has been sitting further and further back. I think the blinkers perk this horse up a little bit, get this horse sitting a little bit more forward, which is what you need to do on the dirt. This horse showed the ability to pass a lot of horses last time out. I like this horse at 6-1 in this spot. Makes a lot of sense for me. So Mega Magic is my value play in race number 3. Well, let's go to race number 4 on the card. A $20,000 allowance for 3-year-old and up. It's going 6 furlongs on the main track. And where are we going to go in this race? Well, we're going to go to the number 6. And this is a tough race. I think you can make a case for a few different horses in this race, and I think you can make the case against almost all of those horses. So it's one of those where you kind of have to pick your spots, and you have to figure out who you're tossing from that early pick 5 ticket. Because I think this is a race where it could get dangerous, and you're like, well, I'm 6 deep, and I don't even know if I have the winner. So you really have to take a stand. I like CPG, the number 6, 7-2 for trainer Dan Ward, coming out of a $35,000 optional claiming competition at Oaklawn Park. Why do I like this horse? A couple of reasons. One, I like the fact this horse has been getting a little bit better and generally runs well on the dirt. Runs well over a fast track, has a win, does have a little bit of versatility having won over a wet track too, but tends to run competitively over a dry, fast track. The buyer speed figures are right there. The other thing is, if you look at a lot of this field, it's coming out of straight up claiming races. So a lot of these horses are coming out of claiming 32s, claiming 16s, starter allowance 20s, claiming 20s. So a lot of these horses are coming out of claiming competition. This horse easily bested claiming competition and then won a $35,000 optional claimer last time out against much tougher foes with Isaac Castillo aboard. Now we have Junior Alvarado up. And I just think this horse makes a lot of sense coming out of this race at Oaklawn. It was nice to see the horse that finished fifth in that race actually came back to win next time out in it was a New York bred, actually. I'm a Wide Awake, who won up here in Saratoga over over the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival, I should say, and won a New York bred and 1X allowance race. So I like to see that. And I just think this horse, again, at 7-2 for trainer Dan Ward, makes some sense and has been facing tougher and beating tougher competition. So I'd rather take a horse like this coming out of that sort of a race at Oaklawn than horses coming out of claiming 20s. And I know this horse had been running against claiming 20s, but this horse has also run against optional claiming 100s, has run in stakes competition before, and is just coming out of a tougher spot right now. So that's going to be my top pick. My value play is a horse coming out of a claiming 20 race, but is the number 7 Lost in Rome, 6-1 for Roshan Samsundar and Kendrick Carmouche up on the mount. I like Kendrick on this horse. If you look at the last running line, the horse just terrible race because the horse, was dead last, which is not when this horse is successful. You look at when this horse is successful, it's more forwardly placed. I don't know if this horse is a win threat. The horse has run 64 career races, won 9 of them. But here's the thing: finished second 12 times, third 10 times. This horse runs honest and runs best when forwardly placed. You look at how this horse has run when Manny Franco has been riding this horse, Ricardo Santana Jr., Dylan Davis. I think Kendrick's going to give this horse a similar type of a ride. Forward, get this horse sitting third or fourth, no worse than that. This horse sits that sort of a trip, absolutely is good enough to hit the board. Again, a win contender, maybe not, but maybe a horse you throw into your exactas, trifectas, just because this horse tends to run honest and I think could run really well in this type of a spot with a jockey who's going to be a little bit more aggressive and a further outside post, which is ideal for this sort of a situation. So, Lost in Rome for me, a little bit of value at 6-1. All right, and we're back after a brief coughing and sneezing break. But let's go to race number 5, which is a $75,000 optional claimer on the turf for 3-year-olds and up, going a mile and a 16th. And for this one, we're just going to do the Chad Brown double, I guess, right? We're going to go to the number 8, Activist Investing, as my top pick, and the number 9, Retouch, as my value play. I think in the case of Activist Investing, such an interesting horse because a horse that had shown some promise early in this horse's career, broke its maiden third time out, had a little bit of a layoff, from October 2022 to August 2023, comes back off that layoff and wins. Chad immediately moves that horse into the Virginia Derby based upon that effort. The horse loses, finishes 7th that day. But you look at who the horse lost to: Integration, Program Training, Runaway Storm, all next out winners. Then the horse goes to the bench from September 2023 to February 2025. Hello. Long layoff, comes back, finishes second by less than a length in a $62,000 optional claimer to Degree of Risk. Now is essentially second back. Now, I know it's been a minute since February. This horse has always had trouble staying healthy. The fact that Chad has continued to stick with this horse, this 5-year-old son of Kingman, and not drop this horse at all. We're not dropping this horse in for the tag. So this horse is running against the same level of competition it has most of its career. And Chad has shown incredible patience bringing this horse along. Flavian Pratt up. I just think Activist Investing makes a lot of sense here at 4-1. The horse has won off the bench before, can win off of a layoff, so that's good to see, and is pretty versatile as well. This horse, I do think, is best when sitting more tracking or mid-pack, but honestly, that suits the way that the turf course has been playing, and it suits Flavian's running style. So I think this works out nicely. 4-1 seems like an honest price. That's one that I'm going to be using as my top pick. I should mention part of the reason I am going with this horse is because I'm playing against Resilience for trainer Bill Mott, who is who is trying turf for the first time. And what's interesting is over the last 5 years, Mott is 2 for 40 with non-maidens trying turf for the first time. That's only a 5% win rate with a 63-cent ROI. So resilience for me is a toss for that reason. And that's kind of one of those angles that I know Andy Serling told me about, oh gosh, probably 6 or 7 months ago, maybe more, when we did Talking Horses together. And we were talking about Mott putting a horse on the turf. And he said, look up Mott's numbers with non-maidens trying turf for the first time. And I was really shocked at how bad they were. And so resilience trying turf, I don't love that. This is a horse that, again, won the Wood Memorial, has not won since. Now it feels like we're just trying to do something different to maybe perk this horse up, find something there. So I'm going to be playing against that horse at 7-2. Activist investing, I just think, is a better play at 4-1. Now, in terms of the number 9, Retouch, similar story in some ways, but a little bit of a different dynamic. This is won 10-1 with Dylan Davis up. Dylan got a win, a stakes win on opening day at Saratoga. And this one was over in Europe, but didn't run from June 2024 to April 2025, and now hasn't run since. Horse came back in an optional claimer 32 at Tampa, finished third that day, made up a little bit of ground. Didn't have maybe the best trip. I think now you're going to get a little bit of a better jockey upgrade here to Dylan Davis over Antonio Gallardo. And I'm also, there's been a little bit of a shift in the last, I don't know, 3 to 4 years, where the reputation was if Chad had a horse at Tampa, that was kind of his B horse. Especially, that's become less and less the case. Chad seems to be running his turf horses more and more at Tampa and less at Gulfstream Park. So I think Chad putting this horse at Tampa is not necessarily a bad sign at all. I like this horse at 10-1. I think presents outstanding value in this race. I think your second back, essentially, horse has been training up here at Saratoga for a while, so very comfortable with the surroundings. And again, is a horse that was a multiple winner over in France, can handle a couple of different types of going. I think this one makes sense at 10-1 as a bit of a value play in this race. Well, let's go to race number 6 on the card, which is a $100,000 maiden special weight for 2-year-old fillies, going 5.5 furlongs on the turf, and a lot of debut runners in this race. And ultimately, I went to the number 9, Chrysalism, who has experience for trainer Graham Motion, jockey Manny Franco, and is coming out of the race against Nona's Love. Now, Nona's Love, of course, is the half sibling to Fierceness and Mentee as well. And this is the one sired by Caravaggio, who won on the turf the first time trying the turf after finishing third at Keeneland on the dirt in debut back in April. So Nona's Love is a horse I hold in pretty high regard at this point as a 2-year-old on the turf in particular. Chrysalism, sired by Liam's Map, out of a pulpit mare, Graham Motion, second start. All of these things are positive moves. So this one, again, has gotten a couple of nice works in since then down at Fair Hill, is cross-centered with a race on Friday, but is unlikely to enter that race because that race was actually taken off the turf. So that seems unlikely that horse is going to run there. Seems like this is going to be the spot. Chrysalism at 9-2 for me makes a lot of sense. I know I'm playing against a horse like Delightful Darling for Mark Cassie, who's coming out of a debut race at Churchill on the turf, finished second by a neck, was your odds-on favorite that day. Part of it is stretching out a little bit longer. Horse tired a little bit. I thought was going to get home that in that debut effort and got nailed at the wire. Now we're going an extra half furlong. I'm going to try to beat this one. Same with trying to beat the Wesley Ward. That's trying turf for the first time with Joel Rosario up. But like I said, I think out of those 3, and those are clearly kind of the top 3 in my opinion in this race, Chrysalism presents the best value and has connections in terms of Graham and Manny that I tend to trust together here. And I think they're going to run a really big race. Now, in terms of the value play, I love a horse like the number 8, Grand Gala. This is a horse I'm a big fan of. And part of it is because you look at the dam has already produced a first out winner. And more importantly, produced a first out winner sprinting on the turf just last month. The horse Eiffel for trainer Mike Pupi out in California won a 6 furlong race at Santa Anita with an 81 buyer speed figure out of the same mare sired by City of Light. This one's sired by Practical Joke. But listen, if you talk about Practical Joke, I want those horses sprinting. This is a Rapoli Stables horse, 6-1 with Irad Ortiz Jr. up on the mount. Has a work over the turf course up here, or the turf training track at least, up here at Saratoga. Has a couple of other decent works leading up to this one. I know there's, in terms of Practical Joke, doesn't have a ton of turf influence, or it doesn't have a ton of turf, pedigree, so to speak. But you look at how they do in turf sprints, 10%, it's not terrible. They just don't put them on the turf very often. Well, the point is they're sprinting. And the dam clearly can produce a good turf runner. And it's not as if City of Light is some prodigious turf sire. So again, at 8-1, I'll absolutely throw this horse in at the very least, it'll throw this horse into my vertical exotics, my exactas, my trifectas, that sort of thing. So that's where I'm going to be going in race number 6. Let's go to race number 7 on the card, a $75,000 optional claimer for 3-year-olds and up, going a mile and an eighth. Tough race. Tough race. I can say that about all these closing out. I think you look at this one. I'm going to play against Malarchuk, the number 2. That 101 buyer speed figure kind of came out of nowhere. I know the horse was DQ'd into first. It's a very obscure angle that I typically play. I really dislike when a horse wins a race and moves by DQ and moves up in condition. I really don't like playing that horse in that new condition. This horse is DQ'd into a victory again against N1X. Now is facing N2X. Well, the horse didn't beat N1X. And yes, I know strategic focus drifted in. I don't think it changed the order of finish, in my opinion. But the horse ran a huge race. Also, that's the only race. If that horse runs the 101, sure, the horse wins for fun. But if that horse doesn't want to run a 101, if that horse runs back to the 86, 85, 80, 87 that the horse ran in the previous 4 starts, there's no reason the horse is 9-5. So I get why David Aragona made him 9-5 or morning line maker. But to me, he's a play against in this spot. So I'm going to be playing against Malarchuk. I took a long look at Society Man, who's my value play. The horse second back from the layoff, Danny Gargan, always better second back from these types of things. Lost to the horse that I'm going to talk about in a second as my top play. But I think Society Man, this is a horse that won the Grade 3 Matt win last year. Finished second to Woodcourt in a $125,000 optional claimer at Keeneland last fall. Has run some nice races and ran well off the bench in a $75,000 optional claimer during Belmont Stakes Racing Festival against Bramito, who I'm going to talk about in a second. So I think 8-1, a horse like Society Man makes a lot of sense. It's been working out nicely for Danny. 48-2 work on July 4th. So I like that one at 8-1 as a value play. And then, my top choice is Bramito at 5-1. And I could have gone a few other directions here. I really, I took a look at a horse like Top Gun Rocket or Quick to Accuse. I took a long look at Drake's Passage. I just can't get there on Drake's Passage. You look at what that horse has done against Open Company, it just never wins. It gets close, but never wins against Open Company. So I couldn't get there with that sort of a horse. Bramito, admittedly, last time was probably the time you wanted to have this horse. Won at 7-1. But has 2 wins and 3 starts at Saratoga. Is perfect at the distance. Sired by Gunrunner out of a Bernardini mare. And this is a horse that's gotten progressively better the last few times out. And Ricardo Santana Jr. stays aboard. I think Ricardo's going to have this horse showing that same sort of early tracking speed. Beat Society Man last time out. Beat Resilience, who we talked about in one of the other races as well. So I think Bramito at 5-1 makes good sense and good value there in race number 7. Well, let's go to race number 8 on the card, which is the Bowling Green, Grade 2, going a mile and 3/8. And I'm playing against Farbridge. That is the way that I'm going to be going in this spot. So Farbridge, listen, 6-5 favorite would make all the sense in the world. Am I going to have this horse as a defensive play on my late pick 5 ticket? Probably. But I'll probably just go too deep in all likelihood. So Farbridge, 6-5 on the morning line. The horse is 1-for-4 at Saratoga. That's a little bit of a concern. I don't love the outside post draw because this is a horse that likes an inside trip. And I'm always a little bit wary of when he draws further outside, that he doesn't always draw his best and he doesn't get the trip he wants, which is sneaking up that inside rail. And he got outfinished last time by Deterministic and Integration, two very, very fine horses. But I'm going to be playing against a heavy favorite here. I like Webslinger. I've always liked this horse. Yes, he gives himself too much to do sometimes. And yes, he tends to be his own worst enemy. But second back from a layoff, finished second in a grade two last time out up at Woodbine. I think that was a nice prep for ultimately this race. Mark Casse and Jose Ortiz, formidable duo right now, winning 40% of their mounts together at Saratoga over the last year. 40, 4-0, $5.18 ROI. So just flat betting Mark Casse and Jose Ortiz every time they meet up would more than double your money. Now, I'm not saying you should do that, but I'm just saying that's the reality of the situation. This is a horse that has a massive late closing kick. I think has run well at Saratoga, runs well at this distance. I think makes a lot of sense here. Webslinger for me at 7-2 is going to be my top choice. Now, in terms of where do I go as a value play, always like this horse. Number 2, El Razine. This is a horse that I've gotten home a few times at a price. I've always thought this horse was a pretty good runner. Ran third in the Jockey Club Derby Invitational, going a mile and 3/8 at Belmont at the Big A last year to Carson's run in Deterministic. Came back from that layoff to run in April and lost to a horse, Hershey. I really like that horse. I've always liked Hershey quite a bit. A horse that runs for a small barn, but man, that's a horse. One of my under the radar, one of my favorite horses is this horse, Hershey. I've always liked that horse. So lost to a horse I hold in very high regard. Yes, the speed figures are going to need to get a little bit better, but this is a horse that could be pretty forwardly placed under Dylan Davis, going the mile and 3/8. And I think, it should be sitting no worse than the kind of third or fourth in this field and is not going to give itself too much to do. 8-1 for Todd Pletcher feels like a horse that's good value. English Channel out of a Kitten's Joy mare. There's plenty of turf pedigree here. The last 4 starts in particular since this horse broke its maiden really have been impressive. Yes, there's 2 losses, but one was a second and one was a third by less than a length in a grade 3. So to me, this horse makes a lot of sense here. Second back from essentially a little bit of a layoff, and I think is going to run a really big race at 8-1. So I'm a big fan of El Razine. But, I get it. If you want a single Farbridge, I understand. And if you want to look at a horse like Corruption, that's a horse at 5-1 that I think is a pretty serious threat. So if you're going to try to beat Farbridge, I think there's a few horses you can try to use to do it. I think Corruption makes a lot of sense on the outside for Mark Casse. Probably is going to be sitting second in this race. Going to be sitting a pretty nice trip and might get first run at the leader. And like I said, Cassie Barnes been firing on all cylinders as of late. So could be a pretty dangerous runner there as well. Well, let's move to race number 9 on the card, which is a $110,000 allowance for 3-year-olds and up, going a mile and 1/8 on the turf. And in this one, we're going with Bill Mott's horse, the number 3, Taraj, 4-1. Excuse me. 4-1 on the morning line, coming off of a very long layoff. Mott is pretty good with these first-time North American runners. He's good with first time in the barn. He's good coming off long layoffs. There's not a lot he's not good at. This horse gets Lasix for the first time, which is always something I pay attention to with these first-out European runners, because a lot of times they're brought over because they probably do need Lasix. But look at who this horse lost to the last 2 times out. Lost to Los Angeles in the Derby trial at Leopardstown, and then lost to JRB. Those are 2 outstanding horses. So lost to some really nice runners over in Europe. Now is coming over here, going a mile and 1/8. So we're cutting back a little bit because the horse had been running a mile and 1/4. So we're cutting the horse back, which I think is beneficial. And we're getting Lasix for the first time. I'd love it if this horse was 6-1. That would make me so much happier. 4-1, I don't love that price, but it ultimately is where I landed on my top pick. But I think this horse is sitting on a big effort, has just been in Mott's barn for quite a while, has been training really well between Saratoga and Belmont. So I think this one is pretty dangerous. And like I said, I part of it too is I just don't like the coupled entry. Move to gold and debt limit. I'm all the way against those 2 horses. I have no interest in using either of them. So I'm going to try to beat those 2. I'll probably try to do a couple of horses to use it, but definitely I like the number 3, Taraj, in this spot. The number 5, Gilded Kraken, 12-1 for trainer Joe Sharp. This horse should be speed of the speed by a mile. And the way the turf course has been playing, speed has been holding up pretty well. But even if you take that out, if you just go, well, the turf course has been playing fair, fine. From a pace dynamic standpoint, this horse is still speed of the speed. and should sit a perfect trip and should sit there and just be able to control the pace up front for Jose Ortiz. And Jose can kind of do one of two things. If he wants to go 52 to the half, they can go 52 to the half. If he wants to let this one out a notch and like actually let this one open up 3 lengths on the field, 4 lengths on the field, I personally would like to see him do that. Just let the horse use its speed. Just open up. Don't don't strangle the horse back. Let the horse get comfortable and run up on the front end. And then give the field the slip. That's the key is going around the turn, open up a little bit more then, and turn it for home. If you're up 5 lengths, you kind of demoralize the rest of the field. So I think Gilding Kraken at 12 to 1 makes a lot of sense as a potential front runner, gate to wire winner, because there's not any other speed in this race. So this is a horse that's the only speed. Maybe you look at a horse like Common Defense showing a little bit of speed, but again, I think Gilding Kraken gets out there up front and has the potential to take him gate to wire. So interesting value play for me in race number 9. Race 10, $100,000 optional claimer for 3-year-olds and up, going 7 furlongs on the dirt. Another tough race. I know I sound like a broken record. It's another tough race, though. 24 Mamba, interesting horse. Little Knee, very interesting horse. Scotland, very fascinating horse. These are all really good horses. Running Son of a Gun. Even How Great Is Nate, the riderless horse from the Gotham in 2023. Always loved How Great Is Nate, who came back to win the Long Branch. Nice little horse. So this is a nice horse, a nice field. I ultimately landed on the chalk, which I hate, but I landed on the chalk general partner for Chad Brown. This horse, I know critics will say this horse gets the right trip every time out. When it wins, it gets the easiest trip, just kind of tracking a pace and then pulls away and wins, or wins gate to wire. And it's true. But I also think this horse, there's plenty of things that make sense about this horse and his progression. This was a well-regarded horse, broke its maiden second time out, then finishes second to Timberlake in the Champagne, goes to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, isn't seen again, finishes sixth that day. Okay, is overwhelmed by Fierceness and Muth and Locked in that group. Clearly isn't a 2-turn horse. They turn him back to a 1-turn, 1.5-turn mile out of the Wilson chute, wins off the bench against N1X Company, then goes to the bench from June 2024 to April 2025, comes back, runs third in a nice field against 24 Mamba and Toxic Gray, but finishes third. Then the next time out, breaks through the gate. It's just a miserable trip that you can just absolutely toss. And then last time out, wins pretty easily. Runs a 97 Beyer speed figure, going 7 furlongs. The horse is 3 for 4 winning at Saratoga, 2 for 3 winning at the distance. I just think this horse makes a lot of sense in here and is going to sit a really good trip with Flavian. There is a fair amount of speed, but I think this horse can sit a little off of that. He can pass horses. Now, he does generally like to sit second, no worse than third. But again, I think this horse has good speed and can sit the right sort of a trip in this race. And I think you can make a lot of excuses for when this horse hasn't won. Now, part of the reason for that is a horse like Little Knee coming off the bench, huge question mark. Scotland coming off the bench, huge question mark. So those are 2 horses I would have ideally liked to have used to beat a horse like General Partner, but I just don't trust them. You look at 24 Mamba for Tom Morley. I like that horse, but that horse has a couple of races good enough to win, but also plenty of races nowhere near good enough to win. So, yes, you look at the last 4 starts, 91, 96, 91, 83. Well, I don't love the progression of 96, 91, 83. I don't like what we're trending down after we left the Kenner-Mossy barn. So that's a little bit concerning for me. As a value play, a horse like Illuminaire coming off the bench. I wanted to pick this horse up top, but I think this horse, it might be as simple as this horse just needs Lasix. Horse is 3 for 3 with Lasix, is 0 for 2 and hasn't even hit the board when running in stakes competition without Lasix. Horse has won in debut, and so I essentially off the bench in that regard. Training well for Todd Pletcher. Louis Sai is up for Centennial Farms. And again, I just think this horse makes a lot of sense in a field where there's a fair amount of question marks. This one at 8 to 1, getting the Lasix back on, 7 furlongs is the right distance, 2 for 2 at Saratoga, likes the spa. I think Illuminaire at 8 to 1, a lot of sense as a value play in race number 10. All right, well, let's go to race number 11. And yes, folks, I'm picking against She Feels Pretty. Um, I like Cherie DeVoe a lot. I like this horse a lot. On a buyer speed figure standpoint, the horse has no advantage over the field. If you look at Timeform US, the horse has a bit of an advantage. But on buyer, there's no advantage. You also look at who this horse has been beating. No disrespect, but the horse hasn't been exactly dominating great horses. Um, so yes, it's racked up a lot of grade ones, has won some big races. Absolutely. Also, I just, how good was that, the field last time out in the New York? Beach Bomb, Beleza, Forever After All, Miwa, Edict, Give Me Another. Okay. It's fine, but it's not an overwhelming grade one. And you're taking even money. I'm going to say no. I'm going to play against this horse. I'm going to go to the number 4, Excellent Truth, for trainer Chad Brown. And this is a horse that I really liked first time out, and just got unlucky. Did not have a good trip that day. Wasn't able to really do best running until late. Managed to still finish second to Choyeza, and ran 100 buyer speed figure over a good turf course. Then last time out runs a really good race against stablemate Dynamic Pricing, who's in this race in the Just a Game, but over a yielding turf course. Now, listen, Dynamic Pricing, I get it. If people go, the other Chad, yes, makes sense. And Dynamic Pricing clearly has come back as a better horse as a 4-year-old. Ran the 2 best buyer speed figures of her career, first 2 starts off the bench. So that's notable. It's also notable this horse likes a yielding turf course. So that effort in the Just a Game, I'm not saying it was facilitated by the fact it was a yielding turf course. I'm just saying that didn't hurt. So I'm not saying I'm playing against Dynamic Pricing, because if I'm trying to beat She Feels Pretty, I'm going to use a couple of horses. And so I'm going to use Excellent Truth. I'm going to use Dynamic Pricing to do it. I'm also going to potentially use a horse like Choiza, who's my value play at 8-1. I really thought about Be Your Best for a long time as my value play. And I don't know if you're going to get 6-1 on this horse. The thing that scares me off is Safi. Safi's 0 for 10 over the last 5 years in turf graded stakes races at Saratoga. So 0 for 10 over the last 5 years in graded stakes turf races at Saratoga. Could Be Your Best hang on for a piece? Maybe. This horse does need to get a little bit faster on the buyers. 95 last time out in the Game League, 91 in the Jenny Wiley, 98 in the Pegasus Philly Mare Turf Invitational. That would maybe be good enough to win this race. But the horse is going to be up on the front end, and there might not be a lot of other challengers. But I do think the number 2, Choiza, has good early speed and could be that horse to sit that trip. The horse could run like it did the Jenny Wiley. I think that's the key. I'm willing to forgive that horse's effort last time out in terms of over a yielding turf course, because maybe the horse just didn't like the going at Saratoga over that soft of ground. And so that effort, I'm willing to just draw a line through and go forget about it. We're stretching out, which I think is better for this one. Won a Group 2 over a Maiden, going 1 mile and an eighth. So I think the distance is actually going to be a little bit better. Beat a horse like Cinderella's Dream in that race, who I have a high opinion of. Choice at 8-1 makes a lot of sense in this field as the biggest price in the field as well. Well, let's close things out with race number 12, $100,000 maiden special weight for 3-year-old up fillies and mares, going 5.5 furlongs on the turf. Take your pick, honestly, but this is one tough race. I ultimately landed on Danny Gargan's horse, Gellhorn, the number 9. This horse getting blinkers on, getting on the turf, had been trying to get on the turf in debut, ran well in debut with Katie Davis aboard, lost to a horse Upon a Star, but beat a horse like Practical Love. And we saw that horse for Bill Mott come back and win very convincingly during the 4th of July Racing Festival. So that's promising to see that race coming out pretty live. Now we're getting blinkers on. Gargan is outstanding maiden second starts. Over the last year, 35% with a 368 ROI. He's also a plus trainer when you put the blinkers on. This is the daughter of Volatile, who stands for $12,500. Sold for $250,000. So that's a pretty nice price tag for a horse coming from rather modest pedigree. So Gellhorn for me at 6-1 is my top selection. Yes, I'm playing against the She Once Wore for Wesley Ward. Yes, I'm playing against the first-time debut runner for Chad. I just don't know what to make of that horse. some of the pedigree. It's all European pedigree, so it's a little bit tougher to kind of dive into some of the numbers. Obviously, the Ward horse looks dangerous, but has already gotten 2 bites at the apple and hasn't gotten the job done. I think a horse that's really interesting at a price is George Weaver's horse. Weaver had an opening day winner as well. The number 1, Regalton. This one debuted down at Gulfstream Park on the synthetic and ran second that day to a horse, Luna Luska. Luna Luska went to turf next time out and ran a huge race, beating N1X Optional Claiming Company, and then stepped up and blew out the Clarksville Stakes at Horseshoe Indianapolis, going 5 furlongs. So this is a horse that not just won next time out, won the next 2 times out, and is the stakes winner. That's who this one lost to in debut. So I think this horse makes a lot of sense, has good speed. The inside rail is always a little bit scary, but Luis Saez is going to get this horse out up front. I think this one makes a lot of sense for George Weaver at a big price, 8-1 on the morning line. I like this horse quite a bit. The horse is all turf pedigree. So I think going from synthetic to turf, you're going to see a big perk up here. You're going from Ismael Jaramillo, who's a perfectly good jockey, to Luis Saez. I like Saez on the inside rail in this particular one. So Regalton for me at 8-1 is my value play. All right, folks, thank you for bearing with me through this. Apologies for the voice. Apologies for the coughing and the momentary pause there. But thank you for hanging out. Appreciate it. Hopefully we can connect to some winners here on the Diana Day Stakes card, and we can have a little bit of fun doing it. Hope you guys press that like and subscribe button to NYRA Bets YouTube today. Subscribing is free of cost. We got plenty of great content for you. Race previews, full card analyses, handicapping and betting tutorials, and so much more. My name is Matthew DeSantis, wishing you a great, prosperous day at the races, and reminding you, friends, it's now post time.